Sarah Chen sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien delegates argue. The meeting room on Nexus Prime Station was huge, with seats for 47 different species. Each alien looked different from the others. Some had blue skin, others had scales, and a few floated in glass tanks filled with strange gas. Sarah was the only human in the room. She had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years now. In all that time, she had never felt welcome here. The other species talked to her when they needed something, but they never listened to her ideas. Today was different, though. Today, they wanted something big from humanity. "The Andromeda Sector threat must be stopped," said Admiral Vextar. He was tall and green with 4 arms. His species, the Dominion, had the strongest military in the galaxy. "We need soldiers for this war. Earth will provide them." Sarah stood up slowly. "Earth's colonies are not your soldiers. Our people have families and homes. They did not sign up to fight your wars." A laugh came from across the room. It sounded like broken glass. The creature making the sound had crystal skin that sparkled under the lights. "Humans are perfect for this job," it said. "You adapt to any environment. You survive where others cannot. This is what you do best." "What we do best is help you," Sarah replied. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "For 200 years, humans have fixed your problems. We maintain your machines when they break. We translate between species that cannot understand each other. We go to dangerous places because you ask us to." Another alien spoke up. This one looked like a giant blue jellyfish floating in the air. "Earth benefits from our technology and protection. This is how you pay for those benefits." Sarah had heard this before. It was always the same. When something needed to be done that was dangerous or difficult, they called humans. When something broke and their perfect technology could not fix it, they called humans. When 2 species started fighting and their diplomats could not solve it, they called humans. But humans were never invited to make the important decisions. They were never asked what they thought about galactic laws. They were just told what to do and expected to be grateful. "Earth refuses," Sarah said clearly. The room went quiet. Even the floating jellyfish stopped moving. Admiral Vextar leaned forward in his chair. "You cannot refuse. The Council has voted. Earth must provide 10 million soldiers for the Andromeda campaign." 10 million? Sarah felt her stomach drop. That was a huge number. It would take people from every human colony in the galaxy. "You want to empty our worlds to fight a war we know nothing about." "The threat in Andromeda could destroy us all," said another alien. This one had bright red fur and spoke through a translation device. "All species must make sacrifices." "All species except the ones making the decisions," Sarah said. She looked around the room. "Tell me, how many Dominion soldiers are going to Andromeda? How many Crystal Hegemony fighters? How many ethereal warriors?" The silence told her everything. As always, humans would do the dangerous work while others stayed safe. Sarah reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. It was her communication unit, connected directly to Earth's government. She pressed a button and spoke clearly. "This is Ambassador Chen. Activate Protocol Exodus. All humans are to leave Council space immediately." The room exploded with noise. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages. Admiral Vexitar stood up so fast his chair fell over. "You cannot be serious," he said. "This is just anger. You will change your mind." Sarah put the communication device back in her jacket. "For 2 centuries you have treated us like tools. Useful tools, but still just tools. You call us when you need something fixed or cleaned or built. You send us to fight your wars and explore your dangerous places. But you never ask our opinion. You never treat us as equals." She started walking toward the door. The aliens watched her with confusion on their alien faces. "Today that ends," Sarah continued. "Earth is leaving the Galactic Council. We are taking our people and our ships and our knowledge with us. You can fight your own wars and fix your own problems. Wait, called the crystal creature. You need us. Without council protection and technology, Earth will fall behind. You will become primitive again. Sarah stopped at the door and turned around. She smiled, but it was not a happy smile. We were never primitive, she said. We just let you think we were. Good luck with your war, Admiral. Good luck with your perfect galaxy. You are about to learn what happens when the people who actually make things work decide to leave. She walked out of the room and left the aliens staring at each other. Behind her, she could hear them starting to argue again, but this time, they were arguing about what to do without humans. As Sarah walked down the corridor toward her ship, she felt something she had not felt in years. She felt free. Earth was finally done being the galaxy's repair crew. Now they would see what humans could really do when they were not held back by alien rules and alien fears. The exodus had begun. 3 months had passed since the humans left. Admiral Vextar sat in his office on Nexus Prime and tried to ignore the growing list of problems on his desk. The reports kept coming in, each one worse than the last. "Sir, the Zephyrian trade route is having problems again," said his assistant. The young Dominion officer looked worried. 3 more ships got lost this week. They cannot find the hyperspace markers. Vextar rubbed his forehead with 2 of his 4 hands. What do the Zephyrian navigators say? They say the human navigation charts are not working anymore. The humans used to update them every month. Without the updates, the routes are becoming unstable. This was the 5th report about navigation problems this week. The Zephyrians had the most advanced mathematics in the galaxy, but somehow they could not figure out hyperspace navigation without human help. It made no sense to Vextar. "Tell them to use their own navigation systems," he said. His assistant looked uncomfortable. "Sir, they tried that. Their ships keep ending up in empty space. The Zephyrian mathematics are perfect for stable conditions, but hyperspace changes constantly." The humans somehow knew how to adjust for the changes. Vextar dismissed his assistant and looked out the window of his office. He could see the busy docking bays where ships from across the galaxy came and went. But there were fewer ships now. Much fewer. A new message appeared on his desk screen. This one was from the Ethereal Diplomatic Corps. Vextar read it with growing anger. The peace talks between the Corvent Empire and the Spiral Federation had collapsed. Again, the 2 species had been fighting over mining rights for 50 years. Every time they tried to make peace, human diplomats had helped them find compromise solutions. Without humans to translate not just language but ways of thinking, the talks always failed. The Corvent thought in terms of efficiency and practical results. The Federation thought in terms of harmony and long-term balance. Neither species could understand why the other was being so unreasonable. The humans had somehow been able to explain each side to the other. Now they were back to fighting, and their war was disrupting trade across 3 sectors. Vextar's communication device buzzed. He activated it and saw the face of Engineer Prime Zalthek from the Crystal Hegemony. "Admiral, we have an emergency," Zalthek said. His crystal body was flickering with red light, which meant high stress. "Our deep space mining operation at Kepler 7 has shut down completely." "What happened?" Vextar asked. "The quantum extraction equipment has failed. We cannot repair it. The systems are too complex, and they interact in ways our engineers do not understand." Vextar felt confused. "The Crystal Hegemony built that equipment. Your technology is the most advanced in the galaxy." "Yes, but the humans modified it," Zalthek explained. "They said they were just making small improvements to help it work better in harsh conditions. Our engineers allowed it because the humans were just maintenance workers. But now we realize their modifications were integrated into everything. Without understanding their changes, we cannot fix anything." This was becoming a pattern. Across the galaxy, systems that had worked perfectly for decades were starting to fail. In every case, humans had been involved in maintaining or modifying them. The aliens had not paid attention to what the humans were actually doing. They just knew things worked better when humans were involved. "How long will it take to repair?" Vexitar asked. Zalthek's crystal body turned darker blue. "We are not sure it can be repaired. The human modifications used principles we do not recognize. They combined our quantum technology with mechanical solutions that should not work, but somehow do. Our scientists are studying it, but they estimate it could take years to understand." After ending the call, Vextar walked to the observation deck. Nexus Prime Station was the pride of galactic civilization. It was built with the best technology from all 47 species, creating a perfect harmony of advanced engineering. But even Nexus Prime was having problems. The environmental systems were acting strangely. Temperature varied between different sections. The air recycling system worked, but not as efficiently as before. The artificial gravity had small fluctuations that made some aliens feel sick. Maintenance Chief Kordash had explained the problem to Vextar last week. Nexus Prime was not built by any one species. It was a combination of 47 different technologies. Each species had contributed their best systems, but the technologies did not naturally work well together. The humans had been the ones to make them work together. They had created connections and modifications that let Zephyrian computers talk to ethereal power systems. They had figured out how to make Dominion security work with crystal hegemony communications. "They were like glue," Kordash had said. "They held everything together. Without them, the station is slowly falling apart." Vextar watched a supply ship dock at one of the loading bays. The ship was moving slowly and awkwardly. Its pilot was having trouble with the automated docking system. Before humans left, human technicians had maintained the docking computers. They had made sure the systems could handle the different ship designs used by different species. Now the docking computers only worked well with ships that matched their original programming exactly. Every other ship had to dock manually, which took much longer and caused delays. A priority message appeared on Vextar's personal communicator. It was from the council leader, Elder Morden of the Ethereal Collective. "Admiral, report to my office immediately. We need to discuss the human situation." As Vextar walked through the station corridors, he noticed more problems. A food synthesizer was producing meals that tasted wrong because its flavor database had not been updated. A translation booth was giving incorrect translations because it no longer had access to the human linguistic database. A maintenance robot was stuck in a corner because its pathfinding software could not adapt to a blocked corridor. Everything was slowly breaking down. When he reached Elder Morden's office, he found several other council members already there. They all looked worried. "Admiral," Elder Morden said, "we need to bring the humans back. How long will it take to find them?" Vextar had been dreading this question. "We do not know where they went. Human ships were scattered across the galaxy, and they all left at the same time. They could be anywhere." "Then we send scouts to find them," said another council member. "Sir, we already tried that," Vextar admitted. "Half of our scout ships got lost because they do not have updated navigation data. The other half came back with no information. It is like the humans just disappeared." The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Elder Morden spoke again. "How long before these problems become critical?" Vextar had prepared for this question too. "At the current rate of degradation, major systems will start failing completely within 6 months. Within a year, galactic civilization as we know it will cease to function." The council members looked at each other with growing fear. They were finally beginning to understand what they had lost. The emergency alarm echoed through Nexus Prime Station. Admiral Vextar ran toward the command center, his forearms swinging as he tried to keep up with the crisis reports flooding his communicator. The past month had been a disaster. What started as small problems was now becoming complete system failure across the galaxy. "Report," he commanded as he entered the command center. "Sir, we have 3 separate conflicts that started in the last week," said Commander Zixtal. "The Ilari Republic has declared war on the Corvant Empire. The Spiral Federation is attacking Crystal Hegemony mining ships, and the Oceanic Collective just cut off all trade with the ethereal worlds." Vextar stared at the galactic map display. Red zones showing conflict areas were spreading like a disease across known space. How did this happen so fast? Commander Zixtal pulled up the reports. The conflicts all started because of misunderstandings during negotiations. The Ilari representatives thought the Corvant were threatening them. The Corvant thought the Ilari were trying to cheat them. Neither side understood what the other was really saying. This should not have been possible. The galaxy had translation technology. Every species could speak to every other species. "What about the universal translators?" Vextar asked. "They translate words correctly, sir. But they do not translate concepts or cultural meanings. The humans used to do that. They understood how different species think and could explain what each side really meant." Vextar remembered the human diplomatic teams. He had always thought they were just assistants who helped with paperwork. Now he realized they had been preventing wars by helping species understand each other. A new alarm started blaring. Commander Zixtal checked his screens and turned pale. "Sir, we have a medical emergency on Kepler Station. Unknown plague spreading through the population. They are requesting immediate assistance." "Send medical ships from the Zephyrian healing fleet," Vextar ordered. "Sir, the Zephyrians say they cannot help. The plague affects multiple species differently. They need cross-species biological data to create treatments, but that database was maintained by human doctors." Vextar felt a cold fear in his stomach. "How bad is it?" 17 species affected so far. The infection is spreading to other stations through trade ships. Without the human medical protocols, we cannot track or stop it." This was getting worse by the hour. Vextar tried to remember the last time there had been a major plague outbreak. It was 30 years ago, and it had been stopped within days. Human doctors had worked with alien medical teams to create treatments that worked for every species. He had never thought about how difficult that must have been. "Sir, incoming priority message from Fleet Command," announced another officer. Vextar activated the communication system. The face of Admiral Corthes appeared on the screen. Her usual calm expression was gone, replaced by barely controlled panic. "Vextar, we have a major problem. I sent Battlefleet 7 to establish order in the Corvant-Ilari conflict. Half the fleet is missing." Missing? Vextar could not believe what he was hearing. How does a battle fleet go missing? Navigation failure. The fleet jumped into hyperspace using standard Dominion navigation systems. They should have arrived at the Corvant border 3 days ago. Instead, they ended up in unmapped space, with no idea how to get back. Vextar sat down heavily. The Dominion had the most advanced military in the galaxy. Their ships were supposed to be able to navigate anywhere. "What about the backup navigation systems?" he asked. "All based on the same technology. Admiral, our navigation computers were designed for perfect conditions in well-mapped space, but hyperspace is chaotic. It changes constantly based on gravity fields, energy storms, and quantum fluctuations. The humans somehow knew how to read these changes and adjust our navigation in real time." The truth was becoming clear. The aliens had built perfect systems for perfect conditions, but the universe was not perfect. It was messy and unpredictable and constantly changing. Humans had been the ones who made alien technology work in the real universe. "How many ships have we lost to navigation failures?" Vexitar asked quietly. Admiral Corthes checked her datapad. "In the last 2 weeks, 47 ships missing, 18 stranded in dead space, and 6 that crashed into asteroids they did not detect in time." A communications officer interrupted them. "Sir, urgent message from the Nexus Prime Engineering Department." The image changed to show Chief Engineer Palnock. The usually confident crystalline engineer looked defeated. "Admiral, station systems are failing faster than we can repair them. The primary power grid is unstable. Life support is operating at 60% efficiency. The gravity generators are producing random fluctuations." "I thought your engineers were working on repairs," Vextar said. "We are trying, sir, but we do not understand how the systems were integrated. The humans connected our crystalline quantum cores to ethereal bio-neural networks and Zephyrian mathematical processors. These technologies should not work together, but somehow they do. Without understanding the human modifications, every repair we make causes new problems." Vextar looked around the command center. He could see the stress on every face. The greatest military force in galactic history was falling apart because they had lost their maintenance crew. "How long before we have to evacuate the station?" he asked. "At current rates of failure, 2 months. Maybe less." After ending the call, Vextar stood alone in the command center and tried to understand what had happened. The Galactic Council controlled thousands of worlds. They had technology that could reshape planets and energy that could power star systems. They had armies that could conquer galaxies and minds that could solve mathematical problems beyond imagination, but they could not make their toilet systems work without humans. A new report appeared on his screen. This one was from the Outer Rim territories. 6 colonies had declared independence from the Council. They said that without human administrators to maintain basic infrastructure, council rule was meaningless. They would rather govern themselves than wait for the central government to collapse completely. More reports followed. Trade routes shutting down because cargo ships could not navigate safely. Space stations going dark because power systems failed. Entire sectors losing communication because relay networks stopped working. The galaxy was not just having problems, it was falling apart. Vexatar activated his personal communicator and sent a message to Elder Mordoon. "Sir, I recommend we authorize any measures necessary to locate and contact the humans. The situation is becoming critical." The response came back within minutes. "Authorized. Find them, Admiral. Find them before we lose everything." Vexatar looked out at the stars through the command center windows. Somewhere out there, the humans were watching. They were probably safe and comfortable while the galaxy they had supported for 2 centuries destroyed itself. He wondered if they would even want to come back. More importantly, he wondered what price they would demand if they did. Scholar Zixandra floated in her study chamber, surrounded by thousands of data crystals that glowed softly in the dim light. As one of the youngest researchers in the ethereal collective, she had been given a task that everyone else considered pointless. Review the historical records to understand why galactic civilization was collapsing. The older scholars thought they already knew the answer. The humans had been useful maintenance workers, but losing them should not have caused such massive problems. The current crisis must have other causes that more experienced researchers should investigate. But Zixandra was thorough. She had spent weeks reviewing records from the past 2 centuries, looking for patterns. What she found made no sense at first. Every major crisis in galactic history had been resolved quickly and smoothly. The Void War that threatened to destroy 3 sectors had ended in total victory with minimal losses. The Great Plague of 2387 had been stopped before it could spread beyond 12 worlds. The trade wars between the major powers had been settled with agreements that satisfied everyone. At first glance, this showed how advanced galactic civilization had become. But when Zixandra looked deeper, she found something strange. In each case, the official records did not explain how the problems were actually solved. The Void War records said that superior Dominion strategy and technology had won the conflict, but when Zixandra examined the battle reports, the Dominion forces had been losing badly until the enemy suddenly surrendered. Why had a winning army given up? The plague records credited advanced Zephyrian medical research for the cure. But Zixandra found evidence that Zephyrian doctors had been completely confused by the disease until the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The trade war records claimed that wise ethereal diplomacy had created the peace agreements. But Zixandra's own people's private records showed that their diplomats had been ready to give up when someone found a solution that no one had thought of before. Who was this mysterious someone? Zixandra started looking for the detailed reports that should explain these successes. Most of them were missing or classified, but she had high-level research access, and she was patient. It took her 3 more weeks to find the hidden files. The Void War had not been won by military force. Human negotiators had secretly contacted the enemy and learned they were fighting because they believed the galaxy was planning to destroy their homeworld. The humans had convinced both sides that the war was based on a misunderstanding, then helped them create a peace treaty that made everyone feel like they had won. The plague had not been cured by advanced alien medicine. Human doctors had noticed that the disease affected different species in different ways, but followed patterns similar to diseases from Earth's history. They had guided alien medical teams to the solution by comparing the alien plague to Earth viruses that had been defeated long ago. The trade wars had not been settled by superior diplomacy. Human economists had studied the trade disputes and realized that all sides could get what they wanted if they changed how they thought about the problem. Instead of fighting over limited resources, they could create new opportunities that benefited everyone. In every case, humans had saved galactic civilization, but they had done it quietly, without taking credit, often without the alien leaders even realizing what had happened. Zixandra's research crystal storage was almost full, but she kept digging. The pattern went back 200 years, to when humans first joined the Galactic Council. Every single major crisis had been resolved through human intervention. But it was more than just crisis response. Humans had been quietly preventing problems before they became serious. They had identified trade disputes before they became wars. They had spotted potential plague outbreaks and stopped them early. They had prevented diplomatic incidents by helping species understand each other. The galaxy had been stable and prosperous, not because alien technology was perfect, but because humans had been working constantly to keep everything running smoothly. Zixandra realized she was looking at the greatest cover-up in galactic history. Not an intentional cover-up, but something even more dangerous. Willful blindness. The alien species had achieved such technological advancement that they believed their success came from their own superiority. They had not wanted to admit that they needed help from the primitive humans, so they had ignored the evidence. They had convinced themselves that humans were just useful assistants. When humans solved major problems, alien leaders had taken credit. When humans prevented disasters, no one had noticed because the disasters never happened. She pulled up the current crisis data and compared it to historical patterns. Without humans, problems that should have been caught early were growing into major disasters. Conflicts that should have been prevented were becoming wars. Systems that should have been maintained were failing completely. The galaxy was not just missing its maintenance crew. It was missing the people who understood how everything really worked. Zixandra wrote her report carefully. She knew that most people would not want to believe it. Admitting that humans had been the real foundation of galactic civilization would be humiliating for species that considered themselves superior. But the evidence was overwhelming. She included data from hundreds of sources, documents from dozens of species, and analysis that showed the clear pattern of human intervention in galactic affairs. Her conclusion was simple. Humans had not been junior partners in galactic civilization. They had been the invisible support system that made everything else possible. She submitted her report to the Ethereal Academic Council and waited for their response. It came faster than she expected. "Your research is interesting but irrelevant," wrote Elder Veltharin, the head of historical studies. Even if humans helped with past problems, that does not explain the current crisis. You are a young scholar with limited experience. Perhaps you should focus on smaller research projects. But Zixandra was not discouraged. She sent copies of her report to research institutions across the galaxy. Most ignored it, but a few younger scholars started doing their own investigations. On the Crystal Hegemony worlds, engineer Naltor compared Zixandra's findings with technical records. He found that every major technological breakthrough in the past 2 centuries had involved human input, even when humans had not been given credit. On the Dominion military worlds, strategic analyst Cormaven reviewed battle records and found that humans had been involved in planning every successful military campaign, usually as advisors, whose suggestions had been quietly adopted by alien commanders. On Zephyrian trade worlds, economic researcher Pilnera discovered that human economists had been predicting and preventing market crashes for decades, working through alien institutions that had taken credit for the stability. The evidence kept building. Finally, engineer Naltor decided to make the findings public. He published a joint research paper with Zixandra and the other scholars, presenting overwhelming evidence that humans had been the real architects of galactic prosperity. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Some species were angry and refused to believe the findings. Others were shocked and demanded to know why their leaders had hidden the truth. A few were relieved to finally understand why everything was falling apart. But the most important reaction came from Admiral Vextar himself. He read the research paper while sitting in the emergency command center of the failing Nexus Prime station. When he finished, he sat in silence for a long time. Then he sent a message to Elder Mordoon. The humans were not our servants. They were our saviors, and we threw them away because our pride would not let us admit we needed them. The galaxy finally understood what it had lost. Now the question was whether it could be recovered. 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. Admiral Vextar stood at the airlock of Luna Station, waiting for permission to board. He felt strange being here, asking for permission to enter a human facility. For most of his life, humans had been the ones asking permission. The galaxy he represented was very different now. The Galactic Council had shrunk from 47 members to 12. Most species had broken away to form smaller alliances or declared independence completely. Trade between star systems had dropped to almost nothing. Dozens of colonies had been abandoned when their technology failed and could not be repaired. The remaining council members had finally authorized Vextar to negotiate humanity's return. But they had been expecting to find desperate humans eager to rejoin on any terms. Instead, his scouts had found Luna Station, a massive space facility in Earth's solar system that was more advanced than anything in Council space. "Admiral Vextar, you may enter," came a human voice through the communication system. The airlock opened, and he walked into a corridor that took his breath away. The station was clearly built with human technology, but it was unlike anything humans had ever built before. The walls seemed to shift and flow like living metal. The lighting was warm and natural, like sunlight. The gravity felt perfect. Not just functional, but comfortable in a way that made him want to stay. A human woman approached him. She was young, perhaps 30 years old, with dark hair and confident eyes. "I am President Chen," she said. "Welcome to Luna Station." Vexatar had expected to meet with human diplomats or perhaps their military leaders. He had not expected to meet with their head of government personally. "President Chen, I am honored by your attention," he said carefully. "I am here to negotiate the return of humanity to the Galactic Council." President Chen smiled, but it was not a welcoming smile. "Admiral, humanity left the Council because we were tired of being treated as servants. Why should we return to the same situation?" "Because the galaxy needs you," Vextar said honestly. "Without humans, our civilization is collapsing. We understand now that you were more important than we realized." President Chen led him through the station as they talked. Vexitar saw humans working with technology that combined principles from dozens of alien sciences. But the technology looked more advanced than anything those alien species had created individually. "What happened here?" Vexitar asked. "How did you advance so quickly?" "We stopped holding ourselves back," President Chen replied. "For 2 centuries, the Council told us our research was too dangerous or too primitive. You limited what we could study and what we could build. When we left, we were free to explore ideas that had been forbidden." She showed him a laboratory where human scientists were working on projects that seemed impossible. One team was growing crystals that sang with harmonic frequencies. Another was testing gravity manipulators that were smaller and more efficient than anything the Dominion had ever built. "We learned from you," President Chen explained. "Every species we worked with taught us something. We studied crystalline quantum mechanics, ethereal bio-neural networks, Zephyrian mathematics, Dominion engineering, but instead of using them separately like you do, we combined them in new ways." Vexitar began to understand. Each alien species had developed incredible expertise in their specialty, but they thought in narrow ways. Humans had learned from everyone but had not lost their ability to see connections between different fields. "The Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership," Vexitar said, "equal voting rights and representation in all decisions." "That is a start," President Chen said. "But it is not enough." She led him to an observation deck where he could see Earth floating in space nearby. The planet looked different than he remembered. There were massive orbital installations surrounding it, and the night side sparkled with lights from cities that had grown larger and more advanced. "Our terms are simple," President Chen continued. "First, humanity will have veto power over any decision that involves human personnel or resources. No more forced conscription, no more assignments to dangerous missions without our consent." Vexitar nodded. This was expected. "Second, all human colonies and settlements are recognized as independent territory under human governance. The Council cannot claim authority over human worlds." This was more difficult, but Vexitar had been authorized to accept it. "Third, the Council must formally acknowledge the role humans played in galactic civilization. No more claiming credit for human achievements, no more treating us as assistants when we do the real work." Vexitar felt uncomfortable with this, but he understood why it was necessary. Too much damage had been done by ignoring human contributions. "Fourth, we want reparations for 2 centuries of exploitation. Not money or resources, but knowledge. Full access to all Council scientific databases, all historical records, all technological specifications. You owe us that information since we helped create most of it." "And fifth?" Vexitar asked, sensing there was more. President Chen smiled again, and this time it was genuinely amused. "Fifth, we establish the Human Integration Corps as an independent galactic institution. When species have problems working together, they call us. When technology from different civilizations needs to be combined, they call us. When crises need solutions that no one else can find, they call us." "You want to be paid for what you used to do for free," Vexitar realized. "We want to be recognized for what we do," President Chen corrected. "And we want to do it on our terms, not yours." Vexitar thought about the state of the galaxy he had left behind. Space stations failing because incompatible technologies could not work together. Wars starting because species could not understand each other. Colonies dying because no one knew how to adapt alien technology to unexpected conditions. "The Council will not like these terms," he said. "The Council is not in a position to negotiate," President Chen replied. "You need us more than we need you. We have proven that we can thrive on our own. Can you say the same?" She was right, and they both knew it. Humanity had left the galaxy and built their own advanced civilization in just 2 years. The aliens had spent the same 2 years watching their ancient civilization fall apart. "I will present your terms to the council," Vexitar said. "Take your time," President Chen said. "But while you decide, remember that every day you delay, more of your systems fail. More of your colonies become uninhabitable. More of your alliances collapse." 3 weeks later, Vextar returned to Luna Station with the Council's response. The negotiations had been difficult, but the threat of complete galactic collapse had convinced even the most prideful species to accept reality. The ceremony took place in Luna Station's main assembly hall. For the first time in galactic history, a major diplomatic agreement was signed in human space, with humans setting the terms. President Chen sat at the head of a large table, surrounded by representatives from 12 alien species. Each alien delegate signed the new galactic charter with their species' traditional methods. Some used energy signatures, others used genetic markers, a few used mathematical proofs as signatures. When it was President Chen's turn, she pulled out a simple writing instrument and signed her name in flowing human script. It was a deliberate gesture, showing that humanity would participate in galactic civilization, but would do so as themselves, not as copies of alien cultures. "This marks a new era," President Chen said as the ceremony concluded. "For the first time, the galaxy acknowledges that civilization requires cooperation, not domination. That different ways of thinking make us stronger, not weaker. That the people who make things work deserve respect, not just orders." Admiral Vexitar watched the humans celebrate with their alien guests. The atmosphere was different than any diplomatic event he had attended before. Instead of formal politeness, hiding suspicion and rivalry, there was genuine friendship and mutual respect. Later, as his ship prepared to leave Luna Station, Vexitar received a message from President Chen. "Admiral, thank you for having the courage to admit the truth about humanity's role in galactic history. It would have been easy for you to keep believing that we were just useful servants. The fact that you were willing to change your mind gives me hope for the future." As his ship headed back toward the slowly recovering galaxy, Vextar reflected on how much had changed. The aliens had learned that their advanced technology meant nothing without people who understood how to make it work in the real universe. They had learned that specialization was powerful, but generalization was essential. Most importantly, they had learned that the people who actually do the work deserve to have a voice in how that work is used. The galaxy would be different now. Smaller, perhaps. More humble, certainly. But also more honest about how civilization really functioned. And at the center of it all, humanity would no longer be the invisible support system. They would be the recognized foundation that made everything else possible. The age of human servitude was over. The age of human leadership had begun.